Right back, man. Right back at you. We got to get Zac Jackson on because I'm gonna tell you what. There he is,
Hi
Zac
guys.
Jackson of the Athletic. We're not even gonna give you no pleasantries. We need a tiebreaker here. Um, so
Wait a minute, you ain't. What did
Good
you
to be
do?
here. Thanks.
oh, you're nice to meet you. You're like, hey, nice to make your debut. We just rushed through your intro. Just Uh, Zach, is there any room for saying that Nick Chubb is the exception to the rule? The rule is you cannot allocate that many resources to a running back. His contract's up in 2024. Are you of the thought that he has a different set of rules because of what he means to the organization, or they're just going to play it by the book and say we can go get another running back for what he's doing?
Yeah, Garrett, I don't know that I can be the tiebreaker here because although I've believed for a long time that Nick Chubb is the exception to many rules, and I believe talent-wise and what he can do on a team that wins games, right, that plays with the lead and all of that stuff could make him that. The reality is this is his age 27 season. He turns 28 at the end. This is year 6. And his cap number next year and the last year of his deal is a lot, and it's easy for them to move on from, right? So, he might be here next year, and he might have a huge year this year. I think he probably will. But, beyond that, and when it comes time to make these decisions, it probably has to be played by the book because the quarterback makes so much money. They have a ton devoted to the offensive line. And, really they've continued to spend in free agency. So they've left themselves temporary wiggle room. And they are not in cap hell per se. But if some of these guys that are making big money don't have good years or the team as a whole has a bad year and major shakeups come, then it's going to be bloody in the offseason. And probably the easiest thing to do is move on from the running back who would cost you 16 but only 4 to move on from. Even a guy like Nick Chubb, who I think is arguably the best player of the new era to put on the uniform.
All right, now wait a minute.
No,
I was only doing that because Tyrus was flipping me off.
No,
Your man,
Tyrus was giving me the finger while you were
clearly,
talking. Because you
y'all-
said everything
Clearly, y'all had this conversation already.
We've
before.
had this conversation for a year.
This is sad that y'all would do. Y'all just Hall of Fame don't mean nothing no more. That's no respect given to the running back. It's a shame. It's a shame. Anyways, I need to know, what are you seeing out there with the Browns right now? Give me somebody that's standing out, because I seen some clips yesterday that was very alarming defensively, but tell me what you see.
Well, Tyvus, we're not seeing a lot, right? And I look forward to like 2-3 weeks from now when we do see more, and a guy like you who knows what they're trying to put in and sees the progress. But honestly, we've been here for 4 days. There's 3 competitive drills. Right. So I'm having a lot of fun watching the defensive linemen run around. Right. Like I'm having a lot of fun watching the passing because you want to see this offense grow. But what are we seeing? I don't know. So, of course, this means something. They wouldn't be here if it didn't. And with a new defensive coordinator, new special teams coach, and basically a new quarterback they're building. But they're just trying to get out of here healthy. And they're just saying, look, we have X amount of practice. We have 6.5 weeks until we play a game. And so far, and really, I think there'll be 1, maybe 1.5 real practices the rest of the week here. We're just not seeing a lot.
Why did they do this? Why are they there?
It's daycare, for one. It's team bonding for most. But honestly, like, it's easy to say team bonding, but a lot of it is the reality of this isn't old school camp, right? You can't keep guys 2.5 hours on the field and then 5.5 hours in the meeting rooms and then do the exact same thing 5 days in a row. He wants to still have an attention span on August 20th, right? So to Kevin Stefanski, this is not hard and fast, but the days that really matter from a competitive standpoint are the 2 days in Philly. What matters here is the team bonding, forcing these guys to be friends, trying to force them to be a team, right? A lot of meetings, a lot of walkthroughs, and just building a foundation. A week from tomorrow, the young guys are going to play, and they're not going to have really done any live tackling, much of anything. It's going to be ugly, but they're going to see who stands out then. And from there, camp in terms of competitions and refinement rather than installation will start off. But right here, they are jogging through the motions. They're having a lot of meetings, and they are stuck deep in southern West Virginia where they have to hang out with one another.
Zach, I had to clear my throat right there because if they don't get out to a good start, they're going to be in trouble. And I'm talking about regular season.
Mm-hmm.
What is he already came out, I think, and said that they're really not going to play in the Philadelphia game. I think Stefanski said they're going to practice with Philadelphia.
Yeah.
They're not going to play that game. Chances are nobody's going to play in the Hall of Fame game. So that leaves another game which they may play a snap or two. Are you worried about not being able to see, the DeShaun Watson, the offense, guys getting real live reps, and going into right off the bat AFC North games that really count, the first 3 games or 4 games of the year?
Well, it leaves 2 games, right? The home game, I believe DeShaun will start. Now, I don't think you're going to see Chubb, Ward, Garrett, Cooper, Zadarius Smith, Bitonio, right? But I think you're going to see for 1 or 2 drives DeShaun Watson on August 11th at home. And I think for 1 or 2 or maybe 3 or 4 drives in Kansas City on August 26th, you're going to see DeShaun Watson. I think that's the plan. Now, the only things that are firm are what you said. It's going to be all backups next week, and it's going to be all backups in Philly because he looks at those 2 days in practice as what matters. Everything else is kind of fluid. So do I want to see it? Yes. Is he aware of this? Yes. But I think when he's talked to those he trusts, and I'm talking about Kevin here, going to his coaches, going to the front office members and saying, we know what's at stake here. We know how ready we have to be. I don't think any of them come to the conclusion that we should put guys out there for half in the preseason and lose a starter, right? This is a good team. This is an experienced team. The defense is new. It has to be, right? But these guys have played together, and I don't think they're going to push too many buttons. I think they're going to trust the staff continuity, even with the changes. I think they're going to trust the offensive line continuity. And I think they're going to say, rather than push in the preseason and take too many risks, we're going to play this for 17, and we're going to rely on the element of surprise and the element of a very fresh Zadarius Smith, Myles Garrett, and the other guys to beat the Bengals in week 1, which I think they can do. So it's a long, long way away. But I don't think there's anything that's making Kevin Stefanski get off of how he wants to run camp or make him say that there's anything they could really do to make these games, more urgent than they are. I mean, it's a huge, huge month. There's no doubt about it.
So the Hall of Fame game, which is next Thursday, I believe, because I got to be in Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
Out of the rookie class, out of the guys that, the drafted guys and the undrafted guys, we'll see those guys pretty much the entire game or a lot of the game. Which one of those are you looking most forward to seeing? Who you think will be the best out of those groups?
Well, I want to see more Cedric Tillman, Tyvis. I mean, he's big, he's smooth. We haven't seen a ton out of him, and they haven't really seen him let it rip. He scored a touchdown yesterday on Greg Newsome. Newsome claiming push off, and the next time Newsome didn't let him get off the line. It was like the first kind of training camp thing that we've seen, right? So I think he'll play 1 or 2 series, and the big tackle, Siaki Ika, will play 1 or 2 series. But Kellen Mond's going to start the game. He's not a rookie. He might as well be one here with the Browns. Guys like John Kelly, they're not going to get many chances, right? Anthony Schwartz has not been in camp. So if you're Dalen Baldwin, if you're Mike Hartley, these are your chances to make plays in these games. So, the young defensive lineman, Alex Wright, played a lot last year, didn't record any stats. He needs to get out there. They drafted Isaiah McGuire. Those guys are basically competing for one role. So I think all the rookies will be up. But other than that, it's mostly going to be more third-team guys than second-team guys in Canton. It's going to be a lot of running, get the hell out of there, right? And then we'll see where it goes from there, because in the following week they will have a couple of real practices, and I think they'll start to turn the page in camp from the basic installation stuff to the next stuff. But really, the Hall of Fame game is going to be for those bottom-of-the-roster guys to let it rip and try to make an impression.
We're going to do a segment here on Jordan Akins coming up in a couple minutes, so I want to ask you now, because I really don't know the answer to this. Who do you think is going to be more involved in this offense and hold a bigger role, Jordan Akins or Harrison Bryant?
Well, right now, Harrison Bryant's ahead in just watching the lines, but I think the easy answer is Jordan Akins. I think they signed him because they see it as a clear upgrade in the number 2 tight end position, right? And he has the history with Watson. He's big. He knows where to be. He's played a lot in the NFL. So to me, it's that. Now, last year, he didn't make the Giants coming out of camp, but he ended up in Houston and had a decent year. And the Browns, he wasn't a top priority for the Browns because he wasn't a defensive lineman, right? But the Browns saw him as a priority and feel fortunate to get him. So I believe there's a way better chance that Jordan Akins is a part of this offense than Harrison Bryant. And probably a better chance that he's a part than like the David Bells and Anthony Schwartzes that we're talking about. So to me, the only development here, guys, from a real football and how it's going to go standpoint is Marquise Goodwin will be a significant loss because he was going to have a role on this team, and that's real speed that can tie up the safeties to let Njoku and let Elijah Moore work underneath. And if Marquise Goodwin's not here, that affects who makes the team, and potentially it affects how you get defended, going down the road.
Man, prayers up to Marquise. We had him on the show last weekend. He was excited.
Yeah, such a good guy, man. It's scary.
He was pumped to go. So you've been watching a little bit of defense, and I know that Greg Newsome is operating the most in the nickel position, but has there been times where has Denzel had any reps in the nickel position? Has Martin Emerson had any? Because when I watched him in minicamp, I seen Denzel taking a lot of all over to the side trying to get the nickel position down. So has he had any opportunities to be in there from what you've seen?
Yeah, one day he did it in the spring, and I think he's mixed in here. It's mostly been Greg Newsome. So the only thing, like I said, it's a lot of fun to watch and listen to the defensive line. And I certainly, when they break the huddle, Tyvus for 7-on-7 or for that stuff, I'm looking. It's mostly been Newsome. It has been the other guys mix in. But the thing that's notable is, like, the top two linebackers have been Jordan Kanashik and Phillips. And so we know they're just bringing the other guys along slowly. And, like, in Walker and Taki's case, super slowly. They won't do any contact for 3 weeks, probably not at all, right, just depending on where they are. But if the Browns are ever in a spot where Kanashik and Phillips are actually playing, then they're in big trouble. So you're just kind of seeing guys mix in now, and we'll see. It's much more fascinating with what happens on the D-line because we know they want to move Za'Darius inside in a lot of their nickel stuff, but Za'Darius looks like he lost about 15 pounds. So I'm counting on Greg Newsome being the slot almost all the time, and I'm more interested as they go forward in how they're going to mix and match those defensive linemen. And then ultimately, are they going to bring another guy in? Because we know Jordan Elliott has not played like a starter really at any time in his previous 3 years, but he still is the starter right now.
Zach, I got one last question for you for myself. They had the DBs decided to show some I guess we'll call it some swag.
Oh, that was
show the clip for Anthony and just tell me, what do you think of this?
This is trash. We need a spokesman for this.
We're talking about the end of practice breakdown here. Is that what we're seeing?
Yeah, we're seeing.
Did you feel the energy off of it?
I noticed that, Tyvus. I did, but I got to tell you, I've seen that before through the years. I've covered like 17 coaches of this team, so I've seen it. I did notice it. I didn't give it a second thought, but I have seen them in the break. You guys see the bleachers behind?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's generally where I watch practice from. So the D linemen work right in front of there. I just happened to be on the side, and I saw this one day. I think they've been doing it every day, but it's nothing that really struck me because I've seen it before.
Man, these dudes look like that was the 5 heartbeats choreographed. That's a little like
it looks a little bit like the Remember the Titans.
I done been in some great secondaries, and it was not like that. I was not moved, Zach. I really was upset. I'm not gonna lie to you. I saw it and I was upset.
3 Musketeers. It's terrible. That's so trash. Get your people together, Tyvus. That's not a good look.
Man, listen. And the good news is that they trying to bring that swag. You can see the effort, but that wasn't it. That one wasn't it to me.
You keep saying these Zach, you keep talking about the D-line. I'm actually super excited to see the D-line, especially when, the guys are lined up in a wide alignment. And I'm just feeling like, if you got Myles Garrett outside of a tight end, there's nothing that tight end can do with him. It just seems like you could be much more disruptive. JOK even talked about, in I guess it is interview, saying that it just feels good that Jim Schwartz lets him be you're just free. Kind of explain what you're saying for the D-line, watching them up close, and what do you mean by free? And how does Za'Darius Smith look on the opposite of Myles Garrett? Because I know that's just, to me, that's one of the main things I'm looking forward to coming up here in the season.
Yeah, I think the gist of what the Schwartz defense is going to be, there's going to be the wide 9, and we've seen that, right? And the D-line are going to be asked to get up the field. And, we know that what Myles is good at. We know what Za'Darius can do. Every drill that they do is a sprint towards the quarterback crashing down. And I think the idea is that the linebackers are just more free, right? Of course, they have responsibilities, and of course, they're making reads. But I think it's less. I think they're supposed to follow the D-line and just kind of track the play and let them go. And we know JOK is very instinctual. We know we've seen JOK make rare closing speed. So I think that's the idea on that. I know the idea is for Okwankwo to play outside on 3rd down, on 2nd and long, right? So this team has to stop the run and get there. And Newsome and the safeties are going to have to make plays because teams are going to run the ball and teams are going to screen them like crazy to try to take advantage of that aggressiveness. But the whole idea here is for that D-line to cause havoc, to mix and match, fewer double teams for Miles, almost no double teams for Zadarius. They want to create turnovers. They want DeShaun Watson to score points. And in the fourth quarter, they want to get the ball to Nick Chubb. So for all the fancy stuff, that's the blueprint. We'll see how often they can get there because it hasn't been. Last year that was a struggle.
I like that.
If Marquise Goodwin is out, what does this receiver room look like? Who's in?
Well, David Bell certainly makes the team if Marquise Goodwin. And I think they want David Bell to make the team. Like, he was only a third-round pick. I just have not seen to where he looks good enough to make the team, right? And I'm not trying to be personal with that. I just haven't seen it. There's faster guys. There's quicker guys. And then they remade the receiving room. They gave the money to Moore, to Goodwin, and to Tillman because they didn't think they had enough last year. So I don't know what's going to happen with Anthony Schwartz. He's been working out after practice. He needs to get in there and play, and he'll get the preseason. Jalen Darden's the name to watch for me. He's a slot guy. He's way more explosive than David Bell. So, he's probably – David Bell is probably like the traditional backup slot receiver and get in there, and they trust to be in the right place. Where Darden is more of like, if something would happen to Elijah Moore, he can do a lot of that moving around stuff. So, guys, ultimately we know Amari Cooper is a number one receiver, right? And we know that Cooper, Moore, and David Njoku can be moved around. Like, they all have that flexibility. And when you watch in the spring and you watch here, you see Elijah Moore everywhere. Inside, outside, motioning into the backfield, motioning out of the backfield. So they kind of see him as the missing piece from last year. And then Goodwin was going to have a role, playing on the outside and stretching those safeties out. So where does all that fit? Can Tillman really push for playing time? Does Jalen Darden make the team, or do I just not know what I'm talking about? We'll see. But yeah, Goodwin was going to have a role. So that affects both the roster makeup, like I said, and kind of the makeup of the play calling, where he just had such rare speed that even if you weren't throwing it to him, the safeties had to respect it.
What does that mean for Jakeem Grant? Is he a guy that guy last year, he had the injury. He has some speed, but do they see him more as a punt return guy? And if so, does that mean that he may get some reps because of, just guys like Schwartz being out and Goodwin being out?
Yeah, Garrett, I'm glad you asked that because I'm not intentionally dismissing him, but he got hurt last year so early, and he's kind of barely been in through the spring and now because they're bringing him back. And so to me, he would have to take a big jump to make the team. And he might, right? They have him on a schedule. He's been involved every other day. He's been at practice on the days even he's not in. So he could be that guy that makes it as a returner and then, kind of that backup to Elijah Moore. To this point, he's not really in the mix, and my personal thought is that he won't be. But, again, it's a long way, even through August, let alone September, so he might be. If he's in the Philly practices, if he's at the end and he's healthy, he does have that speed. I mean, they gave him some real money last year, and they thought that he could help them in addition to being a punt returner. He just hasn't been in the mix. So talking about what I've seen, I just haven't seen him. So I definitely could be wrong in dismissing him. At the same time, I would be at least a little bit surprised if he's ultimately on this 53-man roster.
What you got?
So you are saying that realistically, because let me just get right to it. I watched some film yesterday. I was watching the Eagles in 2017. When they went to the Super Bowl, I so happened to watch when they played the Vikings in that AFC, what is the NFC Championship game. Mm-hmm. And what I noticed in that was the defensive tackles was like huge. They got Fletcher Cox and all of that. How fixed is this defensive tackle position? Because we only really got Dalvin Tomlinson was the big name. Obviously, we got Mo Hurst, Tristan Hill. How sure are you that this is fixed? Because I see right now the starting tackles is Tomlinson and Jordan Elliott. So will they really be able to plug that run game up in the middle, or will it be a thing we see from last year?
And to piggyback off that, before you answer, do they need to bring anyone in to replace Perrion?
Yeah, I'm 100% sure that Dalvin Tomlinson is going to be the number one defensive tackle on this team, and I'm 0% sure about anything else. So, I understand why they got him. They tried to get Javon Hargrave. Tomlinson's been very durable. He plays, different spots, and he's gotten to the passer a little bit. I mean, the thing is, Tyvus, they listed him at 325. They didn't have anybody over 305 last year, right? At least not that played a lot. So Hurst can play. He's played in this league. He's made plays. He's just been hurt the last 2 years, 2 games over 2 years. So, you get a big year out of Dalvin, and he commands double teams, and he crashes the pocket, then that makes the job easier on everyone. If he doesn't play 17 games or doesn't play at an A rate, then we got big questions. So I do want to see over these next few weeks more of Tristan Hill, as you said. I don't think they ever thought Perrion Winfrey was going to make the team. I could be wrong on that. I can't imagine that they did. So we'll see. I think that's a position they're monitoring. I think from a personnel standpoint, they came down here with the idea of this is an orientation camp. This is the team bonding camp for the top half of the roster. And once we leave here, once we get to Canton and then back to Berea, then we'll start to worry about those battles that are going to happen from 30 to 70 and fixing that D-line. Right now, it's just the basics. We know it's Dalvin. And I think there's an open invitation for anybody to come beat out Jordan Elliott.
When you look at the offensive line, Zach,
you gotta be kidding me.
That is,
you gotta be kidding me. Why did you say that, Zach?
Why
did you messed up my whole day, man? God, good night.
Yeah. Well, one area I do think, I think the offensive line is deep. I think the offensive line they may have a little bit of an issue, given the fact that, they did give Conklin the money. Jedrick Wills is on the 5th year, but they brought in 2 guys. Guy that was starting last year at the beginning of training camp, Nick Harris, he gets hurt. Poaches comes in. They give him the money. What does the offensive line look like? Can Nick Harris possibly play guard, or is he going to be a casualty of, hey, man, you just got hurt and you got your position taken? Because they did draft a kid from Ohio State, Whippler, as well. So what are your thoughts on the offensive line?
Yeah, I think Nick Harris is well ahead of Whippler right now, and I think there's a chance that Nick Harris is absolutely a lock to make the team. I think we have to see how that goes. They do have a lot of interior depth. Drew Forbes has played. Michael Dunn has been here for 3 years. He started that playoff game when Bitonio couldn't play because of COVID. He's really played 5 positions in practice. They've only needed him in games a couple times, but he's played a little bit since that playoff game, and then he's landed on IR in each of the last couple of years. So tackle depth is hard to find, especially when you have the roster where they've already devoted the resources to the starters, right? So they're trying to see what James Hudson can do. It's kind of a make or break year for him, even though he's got two left on his rookie contract, and they're bringing in DeJuan Jones, who's only practiced twice, to this point. So I do think Harris makes the team. I think either Dunn or Drew Forbes makes the team. I think James Hudson could eventually, if it doesn't work at tackle, move inside to guard, and we'll see. But, yeah, they have consistently invested in the O-line, and even though it was a little bit accidental, they hit it big with Ethan Pochik last year. If the 5 starters stay healthy and click, then it will be a strength again. They don't want to have to worry about the tackle depth and go through some of the things they did. But I do think, like, if they needed Nick Harris to play guard or center, that they would feel good about it. And, again, he's not a lock for me, but I feel pretty confident he's going to be on the team.
Zach, we appreciate you. We'll look to have you on throughout the season, and make sure you keep Jason out of trouble, man. Don't have him running around in the hills trying to look for trouble. Just tell him and keep the golf cart together. You know what I'm saying?